Welcome to Cultural Fluency Makers. I'm your host, David Wellish. Each week, we welcome leaders to share how they stay ahead of the ever-changing consumer landscape. With today's cultural transformation, top brands need to understand diverse consumer segments from Gen Z, Hispanic, and LGBTQ+ to gamers, wine enthusiasts, and basketball fanatics in Iowa. Their marketing strategies require them to keep the pulse on their consumers, but also their brand in the category to continue to grow revenue for the long term. Cultural Fluency Makers is sponsored by Collage Group, the only cultural intelligence engine that provides brand and consumer insights on the why that drives consumer behavior and purchase decisions. Let's get started. I am so excited for this episode today, as we're going to hear from a veteran of the insights world. As you can imagine, my perspective is that insights is where it all begins, and it provides a huge competitive advantage for companies. Today, we're incredibly fortunate to have a guest whose career is a masterclass in leveraging data across continents and industries. With 25 years spanning insights, analytics, and data science, he has driven impact at global giants like Johnson and Johnson, Coca-Cola, SC Johnson, and Kantar. He's a true global citizen, originally from India, living in the US since 2010, with significant time spent working in Thailand as well. This journey across multiple markets, navigating everything from B2C to B2B, line versus matrix structures, and even learning four languages along the way, provides a truly unique perspective. At J&J, he was recognized for modernizing the function, championing data strategy to fuel growth. He's the former VP of Insights and Analytics at SC Johnson, Johnson and Johnson, and Coca-Cola. Pavi Gupta, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Good morning, David.
Good morning. Okay, let's do this. Let's go deep. So Pavi, our country continues to change, and given the cultural and demographic landscape shifts that we have seen in America for the last, really 10, 15 years, what role do you believe cultural insights or cultural intelligence play in consumer-driven enterprises?
Yes, I think David, that's a good question. As good question, solid question to start the conversation. Um, Obviously, the demographic landscape is rapidly changing in front of our eyes. Um, it's also a very strange time that we live in, where the polarization and a lot of voices are loud on different sides of the spectrum, which also makes it a little difficult and challenging for brands and organizations to try to navigate and try to keep everybody happy. I think the most important thing for any business that is looking to bring its purpose to life is to make sure that you're always putting the consumer at the center, right? Irrespective of the noise that is outside, if you are able to understand and truly connect at a deep human level with your audiences, your target markets, then you will be able to create the difference that you're trying to bring to the world. And so that's where, even more so than any other time, when you have a situation when, there is a lot of different voices and a lot of um, polarization going on, it becomes even more important to understand what is truly the consumer feeling. And, again, when we think about marketing 101, it's, segmentation, targeting, positioning. So as you segment your market and you understand the segments that either matter to you today or matter to you tomorrow, then you need to make sure you're truly connecting with each of these segments. And this is where the cultural nuance comes in, because some of those segments might be representing, they might be based on certain cultural markers, they might be based on certain demographic markers, they might be based on geographical markers, they might be based on consumption habits and behaviors with the category or segments you're operating in. So as you mark out those segments, then you need to understand you're understanding all of them. Like I said, the ones that either matter to you today or they're going to matter for you tomorrow.
That's great. Very eloquently said, Pavi. So, um, we're in marketing. Ultimately, it's winning consumers' hearts and minds. Um, and so, is what you're saying, the first level is to segment your audience so you can prioritize. And then, in your view, culture and cultural intelligence comes below that. Is that how you think about it? And so, because the idea is how to best then connect with those segments.
Yes, I think, like, I like to keep it kind of a broad level simple, right? Which is, first is, you need to understand what the landscape is. Where are you today? Where are you playing? Where are you looking to play in the future? How is that set up? What is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats at a very macro level, right? Then once you've kind of understood that, it becomes very important to understand what are the drivers behind or beneath what you're seeing as manifestations at the top of the tip of the iceberg, right? So you might be seeing consumers talk about or feel economic distress because of inflation or price increases, and now a little bit of confusion with what will happen with tariffs, and maybe the prices will increase. So they're probably feeling a little anxious, but it's important to then go deeper and understand. And like I said, once you've segmented, you've understood what your audience segments are, then for each of those segments, now you're trying to go to the deeper drivers. And this is where culture plays a massive role, because the deeper drivers are something that drives humans as people, and culture at best could be described as, kind of that evolutionary situation of, like, at the end of the day, we are all, the evolutionary person was kind of looking and living in tribes. There were small sets of people, and you wanted to look out for each other because that was the way you would survive. So it goes deep in that evolutionary biology, where we are wired to look for people with whom we feel comfortable and confident and safe, because you don't know what's out there,
Yeah.
and how the world is going to turn. So this is where, when we want to understand at a human level, why are people feeling the way they are feeling, or what are they thinking, or what are the drivers, what are the motivations, the barriers, then the cultural piece becomes extremely important, because that provides additional context in that understanding. It's like, okay, they relate to these type of people, this tribe, and this is what that tribe is feeling. And now you're trying to demystify and understand what is going on beneath the surface.
Bobby, how important is this to get right?
So I think, like I would say for anything when it comes to the space of data insights and analytics, of course, you want to get to the truth. You want to get it right every time. But I think you need to sprinkle it with a dose of reality of how important is that decision that you're taking, right? So, if I'm looking to start a new line of business or expand my operation and invest in a new line or a new plant, this is a massive investment decision, and I have to get it right. I cannot get it wrong. If my basis, my key assumption is that my idea is going to work because it's going to be relevant for these type of people, and they're going to, put money where their mouth is and actually spend money on investing on my product, then I better get it right, right? If that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is, I call it like a pop up, right? This is digital marketing. And again, no offense to digital marketing, but, it's okay if you don't get it like 100% accurate, even if you get it like 60, 70% in the right zone and space, there are enough tools to help you learn and quickly cull what's not working and amplify what is working, right? So even if you don't get it perfectly perfect in the first time around, but you're kind of hitting it in the right mark through your, again, A B to Z testing, because you can try so many things at the same time, you can pick up the winners and you can amplify them further.
I think this culture of experimentation is so important in today's age, given the the evolution and how much things are changing. Um, what is hard? What's hard and what's challenging of of leveraging cultural insights to drive brand growth? It's not easy. Why is that? What's hard?
I think with the cultural understanding piece, there is always a risk of a brand like getting that understanding, but coming across as inauthentic. And I think that is where the big risk. And again, I don't want to go through the examples. All of us have seen enough examples of where some organizations, despite the right intentions, have managed to you know, get it wrong. And then once you get it wrong, you cannot get anybody happy. And then it's like it's a tragedy. You're like, oh my God, you're trying to do the right thing.
You're in the tsunami. You're in the tsunami.
You're in the like because now even what you were trying to depict, even that audience is upset with you, and the other audiences are anyway upset with you, and now everybody is upset with you. And I think that is the challenge, because somewhere in this deep understanding, because we like I like to think of myself as an applied researcher, right? So I'm in the business of the business. I and to get that business to become from good to great or awesome and amazing, I need to get better insights. So, insights is a means to an end to drive my business. And so, in that process and journey, I can't forget what my product is, what my place is in, in the spectrum of the market. And as I try to understand the culture better, I need to always make sure that that resonates with how authentically my brand is going to show up and what its purpose is. And the moment there is a disconnect between my brand trying too hard, basically, right? Trying to appeal to somebody because I want to demonstrate that I understand you better. And now I've gone to the end of the spectrum where I'm now going to probably put off some of the other people. That is when it can become dangerous, because this is the sad part, I feel, David, is culture should be like it's as a first generation immigrant myself, I, I am amazed with culture. I'm learning like we've been in America for 15 years. I'm still learning the American way of living, because far more of my life has not been here than been here, right? So that means I need to keep learning. Um, and so it should be expansionary, not reductionist, and it should not be exclusionary of like, this is the best and that is the worst. And it should be about like, how do we learn more? And how do you imbibe that and embrace it, absorb it, and make it better? But that's where it sign kind of sometimes gets wrong, because the voices are so shrill, and if you don't get it right, and they're like, you're not getting it right, hey, I'm learning. And as an individual, I can get away with that, because I can be like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm still learning. This is a great nuance, thank you for sharing. But as a brand and an organization, you can't get that wrong, because then nobody's going to like cut you a little bit of slack over.
So, Pavi, by the way, we share in the first generation immigrant, history. I completely connect and get what you're saying. What's also interesting is that, unfortunately, and this is new, where I think years ago brands could also be okay with playing it safe and having a vanilla strategy and being silent on certain things. Whereas I think today Gen Zers don't like that, and they want brands to stand for things. So it's a tough spot, right? You can be out of the game, but in order to play, you gotta really know. And this is where I think knowledge is the beginning. It's the base. Then you can decide what to do and how to act, but you gotta get the insights. But that's different. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I agree. And again, that is where sometimes I think some organizations end up making mistakes, because you like then you understand that nuance of this is what your new younger cohorts and audiences are asking for, and then you try too hard. And I think that is where we need to kind of let go of that little bit of, urge to quickly try to, embrace everyone, because we could then end up losing our authenticity. And that's that balance. Again, I feel a lot of things in life are about finding the balance. And I think in this piece also, it's about finding the balance. Like, you got a purpose, you got where the society is going, you understand what people are feeling like, but you cannot be inauthentic, so you need to find the balance of how you make this work.
I love that, finding the balance. So, um, let's talk about cultural relevance. I've had the pleasure and the honor of moderating and discussing these topics with many CMOs during the last 12 plus months, and insights professionals. And it's when we talk about cultural relevance, I think most CMOs would say, gosh, it is essential in today's America to be culturally relevant, to win hearts and minds of consumers, and to drive brand love, which is ultimately so much of the North Star of, of marketers. And that if that happens, then it translates to all sorts of really good metrics. My question to you, Pavi, is, can you define what cultural relevance is for you? We at Collage, we call it cultural fluency. But what is cultural relevance, cultural fluency for you, and how do you become it in today's marketplace?
Yeah, I think I like the phrase cultural fluency even more than relevance, because I think it already starts explaining, what the nuance there is, and it's really about, how does this come through seamlessly in everything, the way, everything you do, right? So everything communicates as far as the brand is concerned, whether it's the packaging, the graphics, or how you communicate through social or digital channels, or through traditional media, or how you're associated with, kind of your people who actually could be endorsing you, or your advocates, right? So I think, as organizations think that through, for me, the cultural fluency is about how seamlessly does that happen, you know, and for all your key target audiences and everything, like how you show up as an organization addresses, and it's not jarring, or it doesn't, there are no rough edges in the way how the brand shows up versus, what the values or beliefs of, the different cohorts or subcultures that are around there, right? So I think that is that fluency is like lack, as little friction as is possible, because you're demonstrating that knowledge of understanding in the way you show up.
Well, as you're speaking, the term that is coming to mind is effortless. uh, that you show up in this effortless way, almost like a great athlete, that shows up and it's masterful. And it feels like it doesn't take that much effort, even though we know what it took to get there from a practice and an effort and, and discipline, actually discipline. So that's interesting. You've had such a great trajectory and set of experiences, Pavi. Um, can you share an example of a game-changing insight that you uncovered that had a sort of profound impact, maybe at Coke or J&J or S.A. Johnson, either in a shift in brand strategy or marketing execution, and that had an impact on the business?
So I think, before I go there, I want to just kind of talk about a construct that I usually use to even segment insights. Um, and I like to think about this as a two by two, where one axis goes from the known to the unknown, and the other axis goes from the intuitive to the counterintuitive. Okay. And your bottom box will be what is known and intuitive. Your top right hand box will be what is unknown and counterintuitive. So that is the spectrum. To my mind, that defines the spectrum, right? So I feel insights which basically validate what you already know and are intuitive are what I will call as validatory insights. Extremely low value add to the organization, but extremely important and relevant because you're needed for day-to-day decision making in organizations. The next bucket here will then be, what you did not know, but feels intuitive, right? So once you found that out, you're like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, I can understand that. And that those will be the insights which I like to call them as incremental insights. I actually need to find a better word to define them. But anyway, these are insights which have some value to the organization for sure, uh, because now you're going and exploring spaces that you did not know, but you're still not challenging the paradigms of what you kind of intuitively understand. Um, and then the game changing ones truly are the ones which are in the unknown space, but they are counterintuitive. Now, one thing I should point out in this construct is for any insight to be an insight, it needs to be true. So that's table stakes. It cannot be not true, right? So, 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 so now, if I think about game changing insights, and I want to like reflect on. And by the way, it's a little kind of depressing, right? If of all the years that I've worked in all these incredible, amazing organizations with super smart people, it's very rare to get to game changing insights. Very tough. I can count them on one hand on my fingers.
And is that because they've been at it for so long? And what's the driver of that?
Yeah, I think again, even an organization like Apple comes up with an iPhone once in a generation, right? So it's just very difficult to kind of break all the roles and disrupt the markets on the basis of, a core human need or insight that you've uncovered, because everybody is trying, like there's many people trying this at the same time. And so what ends up happening is you're trying to get to more incremental and less validatory, right? Now my formula on this is keep doing more, keep reducing validatory, try to use maybe AI automation on that, and then do more of the incremental. You like that's the process or the secret. The more of that you do, the more likely you'll be to get to the transformation. So I'll try to answer your question. Um, I can think of one which I worked when I was with Johnson and Johnson. I was working in contact lenses, Acuvue contact lenses, world leading lens product. And what we found, from the data was while the brand was incredibly successful, um, and we were always getting a lot of new people into our franchise, right? So people getting into contact lenses, they were still, we called it the leaky bucket, a lot of people dropping out at the same time as well. Um, and this is when we were like, okay, we need to understand, go a little deeper and try to understand like what is going on, what is beneath the surface, because the level in our hypothetical bathtub is staying the same, which is like the total number of consumers. Because as much water I'm adding, I also have a liquid bucket. I'm also losing enough users over here. And as we started going deeper and deeper, we started realizing that there is something, by the way, contact lenses is a very interesting uh, segment category, because the lens, the choice of do you need a lens or not for vision correction, it's a consumer choice, right? But the fact, the need for vision correction is the card you were dealt with, right? So that's not a choice. The consumer might decide, I want to deal with that card that I was dealt with by using glasses, or I might use contact lenses, or I might go for a refractive surgery. Or in some cases, if it's okay, I might not even do anything about it. And I might just squint more and just try to make it happen, like make my vial. So so in contact lenses, what we found is when people discover that they need vision correction, they actually almost go through a grief cycle, right? And it starts with, oh my god, what the hell, this is really bad, I'm extremely upset, to kind of trying to compromise with the situation with, okay, I understand other people are also using it, so I need to use this, to then actually seeing the benefits of the solution that they went after, saying, oh, actually, it's helping me see better. It's helping me, show up better. And it's actually enhancing my life, and my quality of life is becoming better. To eventually, whatever solution that you took, defining you, right? So, glasses, as an example, is typically what people go into first. And they start with extreme resistance, anger, denial, grudging, compromise, acceptance, to, okay, maybe this is working for me too. I want to hide behind my glasses because they define me now. That is my character, and I don't want to be seen without them, right? And as we discovered this, we call this like a window of opportunity to go appeal to people for contact lenses is reducing. And that was the game changing inside that we were like, okay, if you don't go and appeal to what we call as like new to vision correction, hey, I can help you not go through this grief cycle because you can be exactly how you are and live your life exactly the way you like it today. But if you don't go and appeal to them in that window of closing opportunity as they're using glasses, then it's gone. And this is where, even with the leaky bucket, because essentially people who were getting into the category later when they started using glasses and they're like, let me try contact lenses, more likely, you know, they were 7 times more likely to drop out if they came in later, versus if they came in earlier.
First, I want to tell you, I love the framework, the insights framework that you described. So kudos for that. And then second, what a great example of a compelling insight. I feel like you got me. I got my glasses. You got me. It's like we had talked about this and we had not. And so that's a compelling insight. It's a great example because from there, I mean, marketing and strategy begins. And without that, you could imagine just doing a bunch of things.
Yeah.
But it's such a powerful insight. So thank you for sharing. So let's get to the last question of the business side, which is how could we engage in this discussion and obviously not talk about AI? So I want to concentrate on your perspective of the role of AI in the insights function. Um, what's going to change? How is it changing? Do you think that practitioners are they nervous? Are they excited? Give me your perspective.
I think I think AI is also creating a grief cycle, right? When you asked the question and it just struck me. And I think the industry is going through a grief cycle on AI, right? And it's starting with complete denial, and maybe a little bit of a grudging acceptance is where we are. And it's not just the industry, but it's the practitioners, and it's also, on the client side, everybody, right? So everybody is going through that. What is, the piece which I feel sometimes when we are trying to resist this change that we are not recognizing is our stakeholders are already there, right? So you now risk like if you try to build the barriers of resistance because of how you feel it's not going to be, let's say, kosher in terms of how you've traditionally done work, and now this is pushing you to do work, and so it doesn't appeal to that conservative um, sense of how you always wanted to do this the right way. And if you try to resist this change, I don't think that story is going to end up well for anybody who continues to resist. So I think the first thing to do with AI, which is going on in every field that is coming, we need to embrace it. We need to embrace this as something that is going to improve us, help us, make our lives better, right? Having said that, that embracement cannot be blind faith and blind leap of everything that you are developing and throwing at me. I will just go and dive deep with it and I will start using it. We need to shape it because it's not as if the best experts who are coming up with the best solutions know what the solutions for every functional area are, right? And this is where we, people who've been in this function and who know how this works and how this is used, our voice, like they are actually waiting for our voice or they're actually looking for our voice. So they're not coming, the tech, the people who've cracked the code on LLMs and, how to build the new agentic systems. They're not saying, I figured this out for the insights industry, but they are bringing some applications, analogs of how they've used it in other spaces and bringing it to us. And what they're looking for is for us to embrace what is coming to us and actually make it better, right? And in my mind, the classical like journey of evolution is, how do you embrace something, um, shed some of things that you used to do earlier, stop that, and how do you continue to change and evolve and make it better, right? So that is what we need to be doing with AI. I think in the insights industry, I feel sometimes there is a tendency, especially I know this is like a lightning rod if I bring it up, synthetic data.
I was about to go there.
Yes. And I can spend days and hours on LinkedIn seeing how much of a reaction that this evoke amongst, everybody in the industry. And while some are espousing going for it and others are like, this is the worst thing to happen. But I think I think we need to change the mindset to, okay, it's here. There is an ability to leverage, the latest developments on AI to actually create synthetic respondents. You cannot deny it. It's there. Now the question is, how do you use that as a force for good rather than a force for bad? And that is where we need to be thinking. And so if you take this back to the construct I was telling you about validatory insights, incremental insights, and transformational insights, as as a function, you want to do more transformational. But as a reality, most of your time, energy, dollars, budgets, people is sucked away with validatory insights. Hey, you know what? This is where AI can play a beautiful role for us. What if we leverage AI to actually make those validatory insights, like just simplify the process? I already know it and it's intuitive. So it means the data exists. Can I use a model to actually mine that information and interrogate the data and get to the answer faster? And so now I can save my time, I can save my energy, I can save my, you know, dollars and actually leverage it to do more incremental.
Pavi, that's great. Very, very well said. And it's interesting at Collage, we're sitting on incredible amounts of proprietary data. It's one of our points of difference, of cultural data, which is, and we fuse consumer category and brand. And for us, AI will be a huge enabler for our clients because so much of the data, was potentially not discoverable, right? And so with AI, you can have the plethora of data and insights that are relevant to you at the time that you need it. And so it's going to be a game changing aspect for us. But thanks for the input, and I agree with you. I mean, it's gotta go there now. You got, on the synthetic side, it's also testing. Like, what's the accuracy? What are you trading off? Is it worth it? Is it, But my perspective is that starting with seed data, with valid seed data, that is true and accurate, as long as that's the base, you could argue there are a lot of things that you can argue about synthetic data, but I think it's gonna. My perspective is that eventually it goes there, but it's gotta be tested. So, um, we just learned so much from you, and thank you for sharing your insights and your journey and what you've learned and so forth. Let's spend a few minutes learning about you. So Pavi, what inspires you? What motivates you every day?
It's really the sense of like having that sense of curiosity that inspires me, right? So having and the most curious people in the world are children, right? And all of us used to be children. And as we grew up, the world beat that curiosity out of us, like stop asking questions, right? And as I wrap up my chapter, I mean, I've already wrapped up my chapter at my old job, and I start looking at my chapter in my new job. I think that's a piece that is going to be helping me even bring a lot of value to any organization I go to, right? So that's what inspires me. I'm always looking to be curious, to learn new ways, whether it's AI or some new development. Here's a new agent that is developed. And, again, the curiosity of what's going on, what can we do with this? How is this working? What is the potential application? I think that is what inspires me. Um, More at kind of, I was thinking about it professional level, personal level. I think I link it back to like what inspires me are my kids and their curiosity, and that's what brings my connection to just see them. Like we talk about machine learnings, and as I see my kids grow, I look at human learning, how they're learning, and they continue to evolve, and they learn from, maybe something works and something doesn't work, and now sometimes they're actually teaching me, right? And that is the fun and joy. Yeah.
Wonderful. And this question is, I think, for the younger audience, and I think it's such a ripe time to share, wisdom, to share wisdom. And so, if you could travel back in time and give your 20-year-old self advice, what would that be?
We have a word for that in Hindi. We call it gyan. So it's like it means wisdom, but it's kind of deeper. It's like even more deep wisdom.
Oh, I love
I
that.
think.
Giam, Giam.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna use it.
yeah,
Giam. It's
yeah.
beautiful.
So I don't know what's the gyan I would give myself. I think the gyan I would give myself is, continue to be curious and enjoy the journey. I think as I look at my younger self, it was that rush, and coming from India where there's a lot of peer pressure. It's not even like from my parents but there's this, everybody is running and it's a rat race, and everybody seems to be kind of, moving faster than me. And there's that rush to just kind of try to get to the destination. What you forget is it's not the destination, it's the journey. So that's the gyan I would give myself, to say, enjoy the journey. Don't just in the rush to get to the next step, enjoy the journey.
So wise, and I think a great Gyan. And what's interesting is it's a pattern. Many of my guests in the show talk about that, and so I hope for the audience, and especially the younger audience, they really listen to this, sort of lower the anxiety in a very high anxiety world. Take the volume down. And to finish this great episode, Pavi, what do you do for fun? What do you do outside of work?
So I like to cook a lot. I mean, I shouldn't say a lot. If my wife hears, she'll be upset. I like to cook. Let's put it this way. And I've even got like my own kitchen downstairs, which is like in a manner. And I like to get people, and I set it up almost like a it's a Evo grill. It's like almost like a hibachi grill, and I've got an island around it, so I have people sitting around. And then the thing with my cooking, though, is I'm a very intuitive cook. I can't bake for nuts because of that, because I don't follow instructions and I don't follow measurements. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I made that really, or my son will say, like, can you make that again? And I'm like, what did I do that time? So I like to get the inspiration. I will read or look up a blog or look at a video and get inspiration about, like, hey, we can use this spice. And then I just like to, like, just try something else, try something. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. So I have my critics, I have my, fans, but yeah, I enjoy doing that. Thank you.
You're an entrepreneur in the kitchen.
Yes.
You're in
Yes.
the kitchen. I love that. Well, Pavi, I could not thank you enough for sharing your perspective, your wisdom with us and the audience. And so thank you for for all of it.
Thank you so much, David. This was really great. Appreciate it.
Of course, and this has been another exciting episode of Cultural Fluency Makers. See you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Cultural Fluency Makers. Thank you for joining us. Please share your comments and what you would like to hear more about. Be as specific as possible. For show notes and more, please visit culturalfluencymakers.com. This show is proudly sponsored by Collage Group, unleashing the power of cultural intelligence to fuel brand growth. Please follow Collage Group on LinkedIn, and we will see you next week.